Hello, welcome back to Kim Reads. We're going to read the Bearenstain Bears and the Blame Game. When cubs are at play, it's always the same. Accidents happen. Who's to blame? You all know the bear family that lives in the big tree house down a sunny dirt road deep in bear country. And of course, you know Mama Bear, warm, friendly Mama Bear, from whom is seldom heard a discouraging word. But lately, Mama Bear hadn't been all that friendly. Her smile was gone and she was feeling very discouraged. Why? Because life in the treehouse had turned into one long, miserable, never-ending blame game. Cries of he started it, no she started it, and it was her fault, no it was his fault from the air day to night. Life in the big treehouse had become one long argument about who started it and whose fault it was. And Mama Bear had had enough of it. So when she heard the sounds of breaking glass and spilling water, she rushed into the living room. Then she found a mess of broken glass, spilled water, and a scatter of roses on the floor. Standing over the mess were brother and sister. They were pointing at each other and shouting, "It was her fault. No, it was his fault," over and over again. Mama looked down at the mess. She had cut those roses and put them in the vase just that morning. She looked at brother and sister who were pointing and shouting at each other. It was time to put a stop to the blame game. Mama decided to put her foot down. Hard. So hard it shook the room. "Enough of this blame game," she shouted. "I want to know who really started it. And I want to know right now." Oh, it was like peeling back the layers of an onion. It was enough to make it cry. Mama might have if she wasn't so angry, and the more brother and sister pointed and shouted, the angrier Mama got. "He knocked me over," cried sister. "He made a mess." "But that was only because she was trying to poke me in the ribs," shouted brother. "I was not trying to poke him," protested sister. "I was trying to tickle him because he tickled me this morning." "But that was because she tickled me last night. But that was because he put a rubber snake in my bed. But that was because she put a squeaky toy on my chair and it squeaked when I sat down." And so it went. But, because. Mom understood that she wasn't getting to the bottom of anything. She was getting to the end of her patience. Her head was a whirl with butts, becauses, rubber snakes, squeaky toys, broken glass, spilled water, and scattered roses. "Enough!" she shouted. "Enough of what?" asked Papa Bear. He had been fixing up the downstairs bay window and heard the shouting. "From what I heard," he said, looking at the mess on the floor, "there's more than enough blame to go around. So instead of playing the blame game, why don't we just go to work and solve the problem?" "Let's deal with broken glass for starters. Brother, you fetch the dustpan and broom. Sister, you bring that paper towel from the kitchen." Papa quickly set the bigger pieces of broken glass on the dustpan. "What about the water and the roses and the little pieces of broken glass?" asked sister. "Mama," said Papa, "will you please pick up the roses, but look out for the thorns and glass." Then he laid the paper towel on the whole wet mess. He swept and what was left into the dustpan. Mama put the roses into another vase. Good for Papa. He had to put a stop to this blame game. Papa went back to his workshop, and then the cubs went out to play. But while Papa was putting away his paint and putty, he heard the sounds of breaking glass. He ran outside. The bay window he had just painted and puttied was broken. There stood brother and sister pointing at each other. Sister had a bat, brother had a glove, there was a baseball in the grass among the broken pieces of glass. Papa bit his lip, counted to 10, took a deep breath, and did a very good imitation of a volcano. It was his fault. He's the one who wanted to play ball. He's the one who threw it. His fault, his fault, his fault. It was her fault. She's the one who hit it. Her fault, her fault, her fault. It seems to me, said Mama, who had heard the crash, and instead of shouting and pointing fingers, we should just get to work and solve the problem. And that's what they did. They picked up the glass and went to work. It took some doing, but after a while, the window was painted and puttied as good as new. Of course, there are times, said Papa, when somebody really is to blame for something. But most of the time, it's important to remember there's usually enough blame to go around. And that's the end of that story. See you later.